All right, Secondary Math 1. Today we are going to be reviewing what we've been learning this past unit, which is graphing inequalities as well as linear equations, okay? So let's get right into it. Just to reiterate, actually before that, so we're not getting right into it. So since today is a review day, that means that next class on Wednesday, you will have a test. Okay, so the review assignment that you will be doing today after your notes, it will be pretty much the exact same format. The numbers are the only things that might change on that assignment, but it'll be the exact same number of questions, the exact same type of questions on your test on Wednesday, okay? So let's go ahead and get into our review. So number 1, it is asking us to draw a graph for each inequality. Okay, so those are our directions for numbers 1 and 2. Okay, so for number 1, this is saying that x is greater than or equal to 1, right? So first thing we need to ask ourselves is what number on my number line am I going to put a point? Okay, it's at +1. So I'm going to put my point right there at +1. But before we do that, we need to now ask ourselves, is it going to be an open or a closed point? Okay, looking at the sign, that is going to be a closed point because of the greater than or equal to, because the little line, right? So we're going to put a closed point, fill it in at number 1. Okay, now we need to decide which way to shade. Okay, so if this is saying x is greater than or equal to 1, where are my numbers greater than? Am I going to shade to the right or to the left? Where are my numbers getting bigger? To the right, right? 2, 3, 4, that way all my numbers are bigger than 1. If we were to shade to the left, those would be getting smaller. So since x is greater than or equal to 1, we shade to the right because all of those are greater than 1. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2, this is saying n is greater than -1. Okay, first thing, what number on our number line are we going to put a point? It's at -1, so I know I'm going to put a point right there at -1. But now I need to ask myself, is this going to be an open or a closed point? Looking at that sign. It's going to be an open point. Okay, because there's no or equal to. There's no line underneath. So we're going to put an open point at -1. Okay? So if this is saying n is greater than -1, where are my numbers, again, getting bigger? Are we going to go to the left or to the right? Okay, where are they getting bigger? They're getting bigger to the right. Okay, even though the left has -2, -3, right? Whenever we're getting more negative, technically those numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, whenever it's greater than, n is greater than, we're going to shade where the numbers get bigger, greater. Beautiful. So those ones, our variable was already by itself, okay? So we could go ahead and just graph. But now let's look at number 3. So notice our directions for number 3. It says to solve each inequality and graph its solution. So there's actually 2 things we need to do. First, we're going to need to solve. Second, we're going to need to graph. Okay, so if we are going to need to solve this equation, I'm just going to rewrite it down here so we have some space to solve it. Okay, we have 1 plus x is greater than 5. Okay, so now we can go ahead and solve this guy. So we are going to draw a line down our inequality sign. Okay, and always look at the side with your variable, your x. So I have this 1 that's being added to it, right? Plus 1, 1 plus x. So what is the opposite, or how do I get rid of plus 1? We subtract 1. So that gets rid of it. We do the same thing to both sides. Now all we have on this side is our x, still have our greater than sign, and now we have 5 minus 1, which is going to give me 4. Okay, my variable is all by itself, so we solved it, so that is our answer. This variable is saying, or this inequality is saying x is greater than 4. So since we solved it, okay, check, we solved it, now we can go ahead and graph it. So on what number am I going to put a point on my number line? I'm going to put a point at 4. Okay, is it going to be an open or a closed point? Looking at the sign. That one's going to be an open sign because there's no or equals to on it. And now the last thing is, which way do we need to shade? If this is saying x is greater than, where are my numbers getting bigger? They're getting bigger to the right. So we shade to the right. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at number 4. So again, our variable is not all by itself, right? We have this 7 attached on the same side, so we need to solve and then graph. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my inequality. Negative 11 is less than 7 plus a. Okay, now I can go ahead and solve this guy. So draw your line down your inequality sign and look at the side with your variable. So in this case, it is on the right side this time. Okay, so we have our a, and then it's being added to 7. So a plus 7, how do we get rid of plus 7 or add 7? We subtract it. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. That gets rid of it. Okay, do the same thing. So we have just our a, still the same sign, less than. And then we have negative 11, take away 7 more. So what is negative 11 minus 7 more? You're getting more negative here. This is going to be negative 18. Okay, so our variable is all by itself, so that means that is our solved inequality. So now we can say, on what number am I going to put a point? I'm going to put my point at negative 18. Okay, is it going to be an open or a closed point? It's going to be open. And then which way am I going to shade? Okay, if this is saying, be careful to what this is saying, right? You might think, okay, my arrow is pointed that way, but no. Okay, you always look at the variable. This is saying a is greater than negative 18. So we shade where the a's are. So if a's are greater than 18, which way am I going to shade if they're getting bigger or greater than? It's going to shade, again, to the right. Okay, if you were thinking that you wanted to use that little trick where the sign points, then that means you would have to switch the sides so that the a came first, meaning it would now be a greater than negative 18. Okay, now your sign would tell you to point or shade to the right. Beautiful. Okay, let's do it again. So we have number 5. So again, my variable is not all by itself, so we need to solve and then graph. Okay, sorry, hold on. I'm just taking off my jacket really quick. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it. X minus 5 is less than negative 9. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this guy. So draw your line down your inequality sign. Look at the side with your variable. That is the left side here. Okay, it has subtract 5 on the same side. So we need to get rid of subtract 5. Or what is the opposite of minus 5? Add 5. Okay, so we got to do the same thing to both sides. Bring down our x, copy down our sign, and then what is negative 9 plus 5? Okay, so you can think of this like I owe you $9. I'm in the hole in the negative $9. I give you $5. How much do I still owe you? I still owe you, so negative 4. Okay, so our variable is all by itself, so that means it is solved. Whoops. So now we can go ahead and graph it. On what point on my number line am I going to put, or on what number on my number line am I going to put my point? I'm going to put my point at -4. Is this going to be an open or a closed point? It's going to be open. Looking at my sign, it does not have the or equals to. Okay, so open point at -4. And now which way is it shaded? Okay, now it's saying x is less than -4. So where are my numbers getting less than? Careful, we're in the negatives here. So just because 6 seems bigger than 4, we're getting negative, meaning we're getting smaller. Okay, so we are going to shade to the left. Okay, another way you could have looked at that with the little trick, our variable came first, which means our sign is pointing to the left. So we shade to the left. Alrighty. Okay, let's do number 6. Okay, so again, we gotta solve it, so I'm gonna rewrite it. -3 is less than -16 plus k. Okay, draw your line down your inequality sign. Look at the side with your variable. So that's this right side. So this right side has a -16 that's being added to it, or think, I know it's weird to think about, but technically it's subtracting 16. Or think about what is the opposite of -16. Okay, it's not being multiplied, it's being added, so we don't have to worry about that. So what is the opposite of -16 or subtract 16? We are going to add 16. Okay, so we have k is all by itself. Still less than sign. Technically greater than, because it's opening up to the k. Okay, so now we have -3 plus 16. So we're in the negatives, but we're moving towards the positive, 16. So where am I going to end at on my number line? -3 plus 16. I'm going to end at positive 13. Okay, my k is all by itself, so we can go ahead and graph it. On what number on my number line am I going to put my point? Positive 13, that's right there. Okay, is it going to be an open or a closed point looking at the sign? That is going to be an open point again. So open point at 13. Okay, now careful. The variable didn't come first this time. It's the 13 that came first. So we can't use the little trick. So let's actually look at what it's saying. This is saying k is greater than, right? Because the alligator wants to eat the k. K is greater than 13. So where are my numbers getting bigger? Greater than. Okay, they are getting greater than to the right. Okay, if you wanted to use the little trick, think switch them so that the k comes first. Okay, k, the alligator still wants to eat the k. Sorry, there's like a little dot right there. K is greater than 13. And then you could have said, okay, now that my variable came first, my sign points to the right. I'm going to shade to the right. Alrighty. Okay, let's look at number 7. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So 1 through 6, whoops, zooming in. Okay, let's zoom out. 1 through 6, we were graphing and solving and graphing inequalities. So 7 and 8, these guys are not inequalities. Look at the signs, okay? These guys are what? These guys are equations. Okay, not only are they equations, they are linear equations, meaning they create straight lines on the graph. Okay, so when we're graphing linear equations, these guys are all in slope intercept form. Okay, so write these notes on the bottom of your paper, especially because you'll get to use these on your test next time, right? So slope intercept form is always written as y equals mx plus b. Okay, you guys are used to seeing that by now. Well, who can tell me what the M represents? What is that thing that is always right in front of the X? Hint, it starts with an S. That's going to be our slope. Okay, sorry, let me zoom in just a little bit for you guys so you can see. Okay, that's going to be our slope. Okay, who can tell me what the B is? The Y what? That is our Y-intercept. Beautiful. Okay, so knowing those two guys, whenever they're in slope-intercept form, that's how we can graph them, right? So, right next to our slope-intercept form, let's again write our steps for graphing. Okay, so steps for graphing. Number 1, start with your Y-intercept. That is your starting point. Okay. Second, use your slope to count to your next point. Okay, so, So our steps for graphing are starting with our Y-intercept, that's our starting point, and then we're going to use our slope to count to our next point, which is awesome because in slope-intercept form, it tells us everything we need to know. It's our Y-intercept is our starting point, our slope is how we count to our next point. Okay, so let's go ahead, zoom out a little bit, and let's look at number 7. Okay. Sorry, there we go. Okay, number 7. So 2 things we want to identify before we can graph it. We need to identify our slope and our Y-intercept for these guys. Okay, so where is my slope? What is the number or the fraction that's right in front of the X? Okay, so find the X, and then whatever's right in front of it, that is going to be our slope. So what is our slope for number 7? -5/2, which is great because it's already in rise over run form, right? We like to see it when it's in a fraction because that tells us our rise over our run. Okay, well, what is my Y-intercept? The number on the end. It's going to be that -5. Okay, so using our steps for graphing, we know that our Y-intercept is our starting point. So our Y-intercept always goes on our Y-axis. That's this guy right here. Okay, so find -5 on your Y-axis. Put your first point right on there. Okay, so -5 is my Y-intercept, so I found -5 on my Y-axis. Okay, so now we're going to use our slope. So our slope is a rise of -5 and a run of 2. Okay, so from our starting point, I'm going to want to go down 5. But oh no, what happens when I try to go down 5 spaces? We go off the graph, but that's totally fine, okay? We can always go backwards in slope. So instead of going down 5, I'm now going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we still need to run 2. To make sure my line is going down and to the right, you need to go backwards 2. 1, 2. There we go. I know that my slope is graphed, or my equation is graphed correctly because this guy was a negative slope that went down to the right. So whenever you see that your slope is negative, right, it was -5/2, your line should be going down and to the right. Beautiful. Okay, and number 8, I'm actually going to get rid of this negative. Okay, so I'm getting rid of that sign right there. Okay, so we're just gonna treat that like a positive 7/4. Okay, but let's do the same exact thing. So first we want to identify what is my slope and what is my y-intercept. Okay, so what is my slope? What is the number or fraction that is right in front of that x? Find the x and what is right in front of it. It's going to be that 7/4. I changed it from negative to a positive, so it's just positive 7/4. Okay, which again is already in rise over run form. Okay, what is my y-intercept? What is the number on the end that doesn't have an x attached? It's going to be that positive 4. Okay, so our y-intercept is our starting point, right? Our first step. So find positive 4 on your y-axis. That's going to be right there. Put your first point. Okay, and now we need to rise 7 and run 4. But oh no, again, 1, 2. If we were trying to go up 7, we'd go off the graph. That's okay. Let's go backwards 7. Let's go down 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now, in order to make sure my line is going up and to the right, we go backwards 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because my slope was positive, my line has to go up and to the right. Okay, so this is the last note I want you guys to make on your paper. A positive slope, which I changed it, so we'd actually have one. Positive slope goes up to the right. Okay, so our negative slope went down to the right. Our positive slope went up to the right. Okay, those are your guys' notes for those of you who are online today. I linked the blank copy, so hopefully you had those while you were watching this video and filling it out. Your test will be next time. Make sure you do your review assignment.